last were in class, we had started the perception chapter. And we started talking about Gestalt, and that basically the biggest sentence that's always associated with Gestalt that really explains it is that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. Now, the way I illustrated it was to use the group the Beatles. Now, the Beatles, as a group, set records in just about every area that you can think of. They changed culture. They changed the fashion industry. They impacted the music industry. They impacted the movie industry. They impacted the haircut, the hairstyles, the morality, the spirituality. I mean, there was not an area that they did not touch in any part of culture. And yet, as a group, they also set records in concerts. They sold hundreds of millions of records as a group, and 50 years later, their records are still selling. The songs they have written are still being covered, and they are considered classics. Individually, they were very successful. Individually, they made a lot of money. But individually, if you took everything they did individually and added it together, it would pale in comparison to what they did as a group. And that's what we're talking about with Gestalt. The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. Now, today we're going to talk about some of the principles of Gestalt and some of the more common illustrations. We're going to talk about what's called figure ground, proximity, similarity, inclusiveness, good continuation and direction, and closure. Figure ground, well, the focus point is the figure. It's what you're looking at, what you're focusing on. The background is what's called the ground. So if I ask you to look at this, and everybody is focusing on this, well, this would be the figure. Now, everything else is the ground. But here's, sometimes we make it a little complicated. Here, you can look at this, and some people, the second they see this, they're going to say, there's a vase. And they're focusing on the white, and then all this black here becomes the ground, this becomes the figure. But some people will focus on the black, and they'll see two faces. And now the two faces are the figure, and the white becomes the ground. Now this is called ambiguous stimuli. The next picture is a lot more difficult to discern the figure and the ground. The question is, do you see an old lady here or a young lady?
I see young.
You see a young lady. An old lady or a young lady? How many see the old lady? One. So everybody else is seeing the young lady? You see the young lady? You see one? Okay. You see the young lady? Do you see the old lady or the young lady?
The young lady.
Okay. Well, the old lady, if you can shift your focus where this is the nose, this right here is her chin, this is her mouth, these are wrinkles, she's an old hag, stringy hair,
Yeah, I see it now.
and she's looking this way, and this is a bump on her nose. She kind of looks like a witch. And her chin is buried into the collar. Now, how many still do not see it? Everybody sees it now. You see it? No? Okay. You seeing it? Are you seeing it? Okay. Okay, the old lady, first of all, you gotta remember, this is not the young lady's ear, this is her eye. This is the old lady's eye. It's looking this way. Her nose is very sharply down, almost straight down. She's got a very thin lips right here, and her chin is buried like this. Okay? You're still not seeing it. Still not seeing it? It's okay if you say yes.
I do.
Okay. Well, again, if you shift your focus and you see the old lady is the figure, and everything else becomes the ground, but you have to shift your focus to see the young lady. And now the young lady is the figure, but still everything else is the ground. Another principle is called proximity. The closer objects are, the more likely they're going to be perceived as belonging to a group. Okay? So here, when you look at these X's, the chances are you saw 5 pairs of X's instead of 10 individual X's. Because we've sectioned these off, put a space between them, and now these look like 2 each instead of 10 individuals. That's because the closer objects are, we're more likely to perceive them as a group, okay? If you came into, we used to call it student union, student center, and you sat down at a table, and you're just drinking a Coke and maybe looking over some notes, and you don't notice every other table now is filled up. Well, she comes in, and she's kind of looking around, and you see her, and you say, come on over and sit down here, we've got plenty of room here. All right? Now, she comes in, and there's no room for her, and you all say, come on, join us. And I come in, and I say, well, isn't this nice? 3 of you all decided to get together and come over here and have a Coke together and maybe even study. That's really neat. And I perceive you all as a group because you're at that table together. Wouldn't even dawn on me that you came at individual times. See, but I saw you together at a table, and I said, this is a group. I assume that y'all came in at the same time, that you all had the same purpose. Because you are close together, you know, I don't look at anybody else in the student center and say, oh, yeah, they're part of your group as well. No, because they're not close to you. Okay? Is that okay? You got it? Okay. You got it? Okay. Well, here's another example. You don't normally look at that and say, look at the 12 dots. You say, look at the 2 groups of dots. And then you might even count the dots and say, well, there's 6 in each group. But you don't look at it and then say, well, let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, you just say, hey, there's 2 groups of dots. One's red and one's pink. Now here's a good one. We look at this, and there's no doubt in our mind they're a couple. They belong to each other. They're happy. They're hugging on each other and such. We look at them and we say, that's a pair. Okay? Now, I don't know what's going on here, but I can tell you one thing, they're not together. And I'm not coming in, if I've never seen them before and I walk into the hall and I see that, I'm probably not going to think they're together. I'm not going to sit there and say they're a couple, because all the space, I don't even have to look at their facial expressions. All I have to do is just see that space, and I'm thinking, here's 2 individuals, not a pair. Again, here, 6 people just happen to come up and pair off and sit beside each other on the steps. I think not. I think we've got 3 couples here. Now, the next one's called similarity. Similar objects are going to be perceived as a group. Okay? Now, we look at this, and more than likely you're sitting there and saying, we got some squares and triangles. Squares and triangles. You group the squares and you group the triangles. You're not saying there's 8 geometric figures. You probably didn't even count them when you first saw them. You just saw the square and the triangle. Now, if I go to a Razorback game, and these 22 men on the field, the ball snapped, and all of a sudden there's this big group of men all together, and they're all moving around and such, and all of a sudden this one guy emerges, and he's running down the field, and I say, "Go Razorbacks, go, go." I know he's a Razorback. I know he belongs to this team because he's wearing the same uniform as that team. And so I can distinguish the individuals here because they're all dressed similarly. And I know that they belong to this team and they belong to this team. When my husband and I had our honeymoon, we went to Hawaii. And my husband was on the balcony of our hotel room, and he was kind of grinning and laughing. He said, "Come here, I want to show you something." And there was these 3 people, and one had a yellow banner, and another had a red banner, and another had a blue banner. And he said, "Watch this." And sure enough, the one with the yellow banner stuck up the yellow banner, and out of everywhere, like little ants, they just started scurrying. A whole bunch of these people with yellow t-shirts started scurrying, and they surrounded her. And then they all got on a bus and they left. Now, I knew they were all part of a group because they were all yet wearing yellow t-shirts, and they all got under this yellow banner. Well, sure enough, the same thing happened with the people with the red t-shirts and the people with the blue t-shirts. The lady comes up, holds up the blue banner, and all these blue t-shirts start running around. I'd never heard the word lemming before. And my husband said, "Look at the lemmings." You know, and never knew what that was, you know. But he was right. They were all just following this leader aimlessly. But they all knew they belonged to this group because of this t-shirt. And they knew where to go for the leader because of the same color banner. Okay? That's similarity. We knew that they were part of a group just by looking at their blue t-shirts. I've already mentioned about the uniforms. Well, then we've got what's called inclusiveness. Inclusiveness. Now, I know I should have taken time to make a perfect square here. Please put up with me. This is a square. How many squares are there in this illustration?
9. Well, no, 10.
All right, you say 10. Anybody want to say anything different? Do what? You agree? Okay, you agree?
Are you just talking about
Wait,
that?
just one or that one? Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, no, just this one,
Okay.
just this one. Don't even think of that one over there. Huh?
Yeah, I could see 9 and
You can see
10. 9 and
9, okay.
Well,
What about y'all?
I'm good 10.
You'll go 10? You don't look like you're completely sold there's 10.
yeah, I mean, there is 9 and 10.
Oh, yeah.
It depends
Yeah,
on
yeah.
how you look
Y'all
at
are
it.
on track. Sure, you've got your 9, you've got your 10th one, but then you've got number 11 right here,
Well,
number 12 right there, 13 right there, and 14. So there's actually 14 squares. And this illustrates a concept that is called inclusiveness. The identity of smaller figures can be lost within a larger, more complex figure. Now, the next one is called good continuation and direction. There's another illustration of it. Okay. Good continuation and direction. So, now, I'll even make it easier for you, so you won't get mixed up. Looking at this, what do y'all see?
Square or diamond?
A square or diamond?
Between two parallel lines.
Do what?
It says between two parallel lines.
All right, a square or diamond between two parallel lines. Anybody see anything else? Okay. Well, the fact is, I drew a W on top of an M. Now, even with me saying that, you have to think about it,
okay.
you have to concentrate, and you have to really work to see the W on top of the M. This illustrates good continuation and direction because the smooth flowing lines are more readily perceived than choppy broken lines. Now, what does this mean? Until I said something, has anybody been listening to the air conditioner or heating overhead? Y'all hearing it now? Yeah. I bet you didn't think about when you're writing how much pressure that you're putting on the pencil. You're eating and your brain is processing the taste. You're drinking things, it's processing the taste. Your brain is processing the pressure that your glasses are on right now, or exerting right now. You're hearing me, and many of y'all are trying to write as you hear me. Your brain is processing what's on the slides and anything else that I'm doing to try and illustrate it. Plus, it's taking in all the extraneous things that your classmates are doing, and that's just the beginning. Your brain is processing and perceiving so much, it's mind-boggling. Now, sometimes it wants to take the easy way. I mean, there's so much coming in, it's processing so much. Why not try and take some shortcuts? So, instead of looking at the possibilities this could be, the brain says, look at that, there's two parallel lines, or straight lines, and look at that, there's a diamond right in the middle. It's a lot easier to perceive that than trying to come up with other things it could be. So it took the path of least resistance and said, hey, that's two parallel lines and a diamond. Well, it does this on many things. Many, many things. Because, like I said, the brain is a miraculous thing. And everything it's doing is it's just mind-boggling when you think about it. Well, then we've got a thing called closure. Whole objects are perceived more easily than choppy independent parts. Now, how many of y'all have seen a Connect the Dots book? When you open that up, and say you've got a little 5 or 6 year old and they're really excited about connecting the dots and they're wanting to see what it's going to be, and you look at that, and even without one pencil mark, you look at that and you think, huh, that's a duck. your mind has already connected those dots, even though they're not there. The mind doesn't like to have incomplete things. And so as a result, we tend to fill in the missing parts. Now, normally you would say that's a triangle with a circle cut out, but it's not. Or I'd say a triangle with a circle on top. Here you've just got a chunk that has been removed. Here you've got a little triangle, but the way we set it up, you perceive a circle. No circle's there though. Here we see a panda, and yet there are parts of this panda that do not exist, but yet you see the complete object. Now the next one's my favorite. You're going to see 3 Pac-Men and 3 partial triangles. And when they are put together, it looks like you've got 2 large triangles on top of each other. No triangle exists. But tell your mind that.
Yeah.
Because it's filling in the lines and it's creating another triangle by creating lines right there.
It even almost seems like the white inside the triangle is a little different from the rest, but it isn't.
Mhm. But you look at that and you see 2 distinct triangles. And especially the white one looks like it's completely connected. And yet, there's nothing there. You've got 3 Pac-Men and 3 incomplete triangles. And it forms an image like that. Well, we've already seen this, an incomplete circle that you're perceiving as a circle. And you may not have known that the IBM logo doesn't exist. It's just a bunch of blank lines with blanks in between each one. But our brains fill in the missing pieces, and now you're reading IBM. Then, whoa, oops, excuse me. I'm going to show you a slide, and I'm going to ask you to read exactly what's in the slide. Okay. Now, it's not going to be hard. I'm not going to, like have it in Russian or Chinese and ask you to figure it out. It's very easy. All you do is just read out loud so everybody can hear what's in the slide. Now, let's see if I can find it again here. All right, this is it.
Paris in the spring.
Okay? Now, that's a fairly familiar saying, but that was not what was in the slide. Paris in the spring.
Oh, wow.
Here, again, the brain is trying to simplify things. And so it overlooks insignificant words. It's going for the big ones. It's going for the meaning. And so the is not that important. And so it glides over some of these words. It registers, but it doesn't. And it's filtering out, trying to get the most important stuff so we can move on. Okay? It's simplifying things. Well, then we've got depth perception. Now, depth perception is the ability to perceive distance. Easy enough. We are able to perceive depth perception because of certain cues. Now, there's going to be 4 principles that we do here. This is not Gestalt, okay? We're going to be talking about interposition, relative size, texture gradient, and linear perspective. Now, as I'm standing right here, I am seeing you kind of blocking me being able to see her and somewhat her, and she's kind of blocking my able to see a complete image there. Those are all helpful to me to get an idea of the space between us. It's kind of breaking that up. Without that, I might be guessing a little bit about the distance, but here I've got some things to focus on, and I get a better idea of the distance between us. This is interposition. Relative size. When two objects are perceived to be the same size, the one that is larger is assumed to be closer. So, now, you look at those and it actually looks like the one on the right is closer to you. Now they're both on a whiteboard. This one I drew smaller. This one I drew larger. Your brain assumes they're the same size, and so as a result, we perceive distance here where there is none. The one that is closer is assumed to be the larger one, okay? Then we have texture gradient. Close objects you can see in detail. I can look at you, and if you had something embroidered on your shirt, I could read it. Okay, I can read the cup that you've got right there, and see the sandwich that you ate. I can see very much detail. Now, it would be harder for me to read some of the detail and to be as accurate as far as you are. If I'm at a football game, the person that's in front of me, I can read the back of their jersey or shirt. If they have a tag on the back of their cap, I can read that, see what kind of thing they're drinking. But the person that's all the way at the down of the section, the first seats in the section, they're going to be smaller. And I'm not going to be able to see as much and identify as much with them. But if I go looking all the way across the field, they're just going to look like little dots. And the farther away, the more grainy. And they even look like little specks instead of dots. So the farther away objects are, they will change in accuracy and turn more into a grainy type of image. Okay? This last one's the easiest one. Much easier than the others to perceive. Linear perspective. When you have two lines, parallel lines, as distance increases, you perceive the lines converging, and they'll even look like they touch. Now, if I'm standing on some railroad tracks, and those railroad tracks go 20 miles straight down the desert, and I'm looking at those railroad tracks, and I'm thinking, they sure do look like they get closer and closer to each other, and they actually look like they touch. Now, I know that doesn't happen because they have to be the same size here as they are 20 miles away, because otherwise we'd have a bunch of train wrecks. But the eyes look at these, and it looks like the tracks get closer and closer and touch. That's linear perspective. Then we have a life preserver. What is the shape of that life preserver? Okay, what's the shape of the life preserver? It's round, okay, what's the shape?
Circle.
Do what?
Circle.
A circle?
Circle.
Circle? What's the shape that you see up there? Well, I hate to tell you all this, it's an oval. You see this by looking at the middle, and you can see clearly now that it is an oval. Now, I said, what is the shape that you see up there of that life preserver? Now, I've told you it's a life preserver. You see the shape, and you see the red and the white with the ropes and such, so it's identified as a life preserver. Your eyes say, okay, that's an oval. And the brain says, no, you're wrong. Life preservers are round. And so I'm sorry to inform you this, eyes, but you're wrong, it's a circle. And eye goes, no, I don't think so, it looks like an oval to me. And it's, no, life preservers are round. That's the shape that they are. And then I go and mess up the brain by saying, look at here, it's really an oval. And I show you and prove to you it's an oval, and the brain goes, huh? Life preservers are circular. And the eyes are saying, told you so, told you so. Because see, we will perceive a shape as such, even when it really isn't the shape, because of what's called shape constancy. Your brain knew that a life preserver was supposed to be round, and even though the eyes said, hey, this is an oval, the brain says, no, life preservers are circular. And so, no, it's not oval, it's a circle. And then, when I said, no, it's an oval, you said, huh? And I had to prove to your brains that it actually was an oval, because it wants to maintain this idea that it's a circle, because that's what it was all, that's the way all life preservers are. So that's called shape constancy, that you will see the shape in the what you've always known that shape to be, even when it's not the shape. And you have to look at it and see what you're really seeing, okay? Then we've got what's called apparent motion. Apparent motion is when you perceive motion where it's not there. My husband loves to decorate our yard at Christmas. And I really think his goal is someday to try and challenge Jennings Osborne's record that he had at his house. Last year, I think he said we had over 60,000 lights on our front yard. Now, one of the things that we have are these little icicles that it looks like they just kind of move around, you know, very cute, and they kind of twinkle and such, and they go around. Well, they have this illusion of motion, that this light travels all around, and it's not moving light. You have one that comes on, and then when it goes off, the next one comes on, and when it goes off, the next one comes on. And now there's a perception of light moving when it really doesn't. Now, cartoons. I cannot imagine how much work used to go in to cartoons, because every cartoon, each figure had to be drawn and redrawn. And for there to be appearing a movement, and Bugs Bunny, I don't know if y'all even know who Bugs Bunny is or not, but, he might take out a carrot out of his pocket and then bring it up, what's that, Doc? Well, to get that one scene, which is 2 seconds, they have to draw the, bugs like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then like this, and like this, and like this, and like that, like that. Coming all into the pocket, going into the pocket. Each one of these is an individual picture. Every one of them hand-drawn. And then, what's up, Doc? I don't know, there might have been 500 pictures drawn of just what I did. And that was like 2 seconds in the cartoon. And the cartoons, some of them were 10 and 15 minutes long. You had one that was called Fantasia, and it was around 2 hours. And yet, every one of those things were individually drawn, and then they were able to cause those paintings to be flipped. And as you were looking at them, all those pages moving, it produces an image that's moving. And there's motion where really none exists. Well, that's an illusion. That's apparent motion. Now, I am going to give you an assignment. You're going to do it here. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to read what's on the next slide. You have to count the number of F's that are on this slide. You have 15 seconds to count how many F's that you will see on this slide, okay? Let's go. Let's see here. On your mark, and get set, and go. Oops. All right. How many didn't see any F's? How many only saw one? 2. 2 F's, all right. 3 F's, okay, several of y'all. 4 F's. 5, 6. There's 6 F's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, your brain's going for the heavy stuff. And it saw the F's, it saw the ofs, but it said that's not important. So it just went, boom, right past them. And you are looking for the F's. And it still fooled you. Well, attention is focusing and directing on an object. Divided attention is being able to process more than one source of stimulation at one time. Mothers are wonderful about demonstrating divided attention. They can be on a telephone exchanging a recipe, answering a question from their husband at the same time, and the kid is saying, "Mommy, Mommy, I want some milk." And conducting this, answering a question, going and getting the milk, giving the milk to the child, and still maintaining. It's phenomenal. But that's divided attention. And the other thing is, we are processing stuff all the time. Now, there's a thing called cocktail party phenomenon. Here, we hear and understand much more information than we're conscious of. That's what I've been talking about. Now, the way we demonstrate this and the way we kind of got aware of it, you may have experienced this. You're at a party, you're talking with somebody and you're conversing and such, and all of a sudden you hear your name across the room. And you say, somebody just mentioned my name. And you're trying to figure out who it was and what they were saying, but your name was mentioned. And the thing is, we're hearing all this stuff, and we're processing it all the time. It's kind of like I was telling you when I got that hearing test, and he said I was in the upper 3%. And he said, you've got all this stuff, all this stimulation, all these sounds bombarding you, and you have to learn how to focus and kind of, shove the other out to be able to understand what people are saying to you. Well, here, the brain is doing that automatically. We are processing so much more information than we are ever going to be conscious of. Well, I've got something here to show you. It's a 1-minute video, and you are to watch the video, and these people are going to be playing some basketball. They are going to have white shirts and black shirts. The ones that are wearing the white t-shirts, you are to watch them and count how many times they pass that basketball. Okay? Easy enough. Don't even have to think about the black shirts or black t-shirts. You just count the number of times the white t-shirts pass the basketball between each other.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you?
How many passes?
14?
14? 15? Or 13?
15.
15?
12.
12?
I got 16.
Do what?
16.
16. 13. How many of y'all saw the gorilla?
I didn't see
I
no
didn't.
number.
Half of the class. All right, here we go. The answer was 15.
You count. The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla? This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Christopher Shabrini and is copyrighted.
Again, here you saw it, but you didn't see it. Some of y'all. Now, had you seen this before? Had you? Okay, had you seen it before? Okay. I would say it's highly, it's not unusual at all not to see the gorilla, because your attention is focused on those white shirted players, and then you're not even trying to think that anything else could be walking across the floor. And so, as a result, You saw it, but you didn't. Well, the last thing I'm going to show you is a picture. And the question is, I want you to look at this picture, and I want you to determine by looking at this picture if you think this is somebody that you could actually trust. Okay? Just by looking at them, can you trust this person? You're shaking your head. How many think you could trust this guy? How many have a,
Say, I don't know.
yeah, how many have a kind of gut feeling of saying, no, I don't think so? Nobody? Okay. Okay, a couple of you. Well, if you will turn your head slightly to the right, you will probably see why you have some misgivings. Because you will see he's a liar. We see things.
Oh, I see liar now.
We see things and we don't see them. But sometimes maybe that's why we have gut feelings. Well, I don't know how we did it, but we just finished this chapter with a half an hour left. So, let me see something.